Ganana tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavin Kavinamupamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspadana Shrunvannotibhissida Sadanam Om Sri Mahaganadhipataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Saraswatyai Namaha Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Okay, we'll do a refresher of what we have learned in the past classes. I think we've done from 36 to 40 classes. Some were not recorded, but most of the previous classes are uploaded to YouTube. We might have some missing pieces, and I've had Sankalpam to do recordings of all the namas, and I haven't had a chance to get to it during summer. I plan to do that, hopefully, with Mother's blessings. Of course, she needs to bless us before I could have a Sankalpam, right? She needs to do the Sankalpam for us. Okay, we'll get started. Before getting into the actual Lalita Sahasranamam, we have done an intro called as the Lalitopakhyanam. If anybody remembers, it is Agastya Maharshi, and he had questions. We talked about Vindhya mountains, and then Lord Hayagriva. There are variations on when we talk about Lord Hayagriva, that it is our Lord Hayagriva, the god of knowledge, that is the Vishnu Amsha, that has provided Lalita Sahasranamam. Initially, there was a Trishati also is part of their conversation, and then Agastya Maharshi asks for more. I want to know more about Devi, and then he explains Lalita Sahasranamam. So we've talked about all of that context. So that is very important to understand where Lalita Sahasranamam is coming from. We also talked about Lalita Sahasranamam.
Sriji, can you please repeat that origin once again? I think I missed before.
Lalitopakhyanam. Lalita Upakhyanam.
Okay. From where it's coming, who did?
Yeah, the context of where the Lalita Sahasranamam is coming, and it kind of gives who is Devi and where did Devi emerge from. So all of that introduction is in Lalitopakhyanam. So when we talk about, say for example, in Shloka 1, the second line, Chidagnikunda Sambhuta, that nama, the context is in Lalitopakhyanam. So that you should find it in the recordings. Let me know, Padmaji, if you don't find it. I believe I would have uploaded it. So this was the early, I think the first class I would have done.
Okay.
Even before I would have done Purvanyasam, I believe. So one of those two would be the first or the second. So Lalitopakhyanam is very, very interesting in understanding the context of Lalita Sahasranamam. Then we talked about Devi's Tattvam during that. Okay. Who is Devi? And lots of what her characteristics are, what she helps us with, and all of those. That's been the context in the context as well. So going to in Vishnu Sahasranamam, where we talk about the introductory dhyana shlokas, the Vyasa Vandanam, and then Yudhishthira asking the questions, Bhima answering the questions, and then Purvanyasam comes. Similarly, for even Lalita Sahasranamam, there is a contextual part called as the Purva Bhagam of Lalita Sahasranamam. And we haven't chanted that, nor we have gone into that, but we have done the Lalitopakhyanam as the intro. That is usually generally not chanted. That's not the regular norm of chanting with the Purva Bhaga, but there is a Purva Bhaga to it. If anybody is interested, can find the entire Lalita Sahasranam with the Purva Bhaga, and there is a Phalashruti, just like in Vishnu Sahasranam. There are three parts to it, right? There is the Purva Bhaga, and then that starts with, then there is the Nyasa part, and then there is the actual Sahasranamam, and then there is the Phalashruti on what are the results or what are the benefits of doing this Sahasranamam. So similarly, Lalita Sahasranamam also is divided exactly the same way, but we start off with Purvanyasa, that has been the norm. But if anybody interested, sanskritdocuments.org, I think they have the entire Lalita Sahasranamam. Let me know if you don't find the link, I can send it to you. in the forum. So here also we used the term Om Asya Shri Lalita Sahasranama Stotram. This is another Divya Sahasranamas. And Mahamantrasya, we looked at why is it called as Mahamantra. And then the Rishis for the Lalita Sahasranamam is Vashinyadi Vagdevis, the 8 Vagdevatas. And as we were going into various namas, we have understood that Vagdevatas are in the 7th avarana of the Sri Chakram that is behind me. In the 7th avarana, we have the 8, the Ashtakonam is one. This is where the Vagdevatas are, and they are the Rishis for Lalita Sahasranamam. The entire Sahasranamam is an Anushtup Chandas. So we talked about Chandas being the prana of any stotram. And then Lalita Parabhattarika, Sri Mahatripura Sundari Devata. Again, we bring mother into our heart doing the dhyanam. And we talked about various levels of upasakas doing the bijam. I think we should the seed, the key, and the utkilanam. I don't know if I'm recording the screen. Okay. And utkilanam, everything. We talked about the importance of what those are. And in the case of Lalita Sahasranamam, these are with bijaksharas or various levels of mantras. There is Sri Vidya Upasana, we talked about that. And there is the Bala mantra. And there are mantra levels that are given based on the upasaka's progress in Sri Vidya Tantra. So the Guru identifies those and gives the next level kind of mantras. So based on where the upasaka is, the bijam, the Shakti Kilakam actually change, and Karanyasa, Anganyasa also change. So we have done one that is more generic and that everybody can do. So if you are in an upasaka and you have confusion on what you should be using and you have a certain mantras, just ping me privately so I can confirm, clarify any questions you may have on that. So we again do the Karanyasam, the Anganyasam, the same angas for every mantra. And then we go into the Digbandhanam. So we are locking ourselves, creating our bubble so we can concentrate. And then we invoke Devi into our hearts with dhyana shlokas. And we have seen those dhyana shlokas in detail, just like in Vishnu Sahasranamam. Amazing dhyana shlokas. And again, for each mantra that the upasaka is practicing or doing the japam for, that dhyana shloka is incorporated into the Lalita Sahasranama dhyana shlokas. So if somebody is like a Panchadashi upasaka, so their Panchadashi dhyana shlokam is also incorporated here. So Sindhura Runa Vigraham. So yes, like a very starting point is, so mother is the Sindhura Arunam. So she is the bright, beautiful Sindhura color, the red or vermilion color. And Trinayanam, she has 3 eyes. So we have seen each of these individual words. So Dhyayet, let's do the dhyanam for Padmasana Stham, somebody who is sitting in the Padmasana. Vikasitavadanam, that mother, just know by looking at her, we know that she is smiling, and that smile brings us so much of joy. So Vikasitavadanam, Padmapatrayata Akshim. So her eyes are like the Padmapatras, the leaves of the lotus. Hemabham, or you can take it as these are the leaves or the petals. Padmapatra could mean both of those, so maybe it's more the petals than the leaves. Hemabham, so the golden vigraha. Pitavastram, the mother who is wearing the pattu pitavastras. Lasadhema Padmam Varangim. So amazing dhyana shlokas. If you understand the inner, deeper meanings, I have explained these in detail, and you should find the recordings in YouTube. And then we conclude, once we have the dhyana shloka, once we invoke a form of Bhagavan into our hearts, or Devi into our hearts, we immediately do the Panchopacharam. Just like a guest comes to our home, we offer some Padhyam and some something to them. Similarly, when we invoke mother into our hearts, or when we invoke Bhagavan, any form of Rupam, Bhagavat Rupam into our hearts, we do Panchopacharams, offer Lam Prithivyatmikayai. Here we use feminine, whereas for Vishnu Sahasranamam we use Lam Prithivyatmane, whereas here we will use Lam Prithivyatmikaye Gandham Kalpayami, Ham Akashatmikaye Pushpam Kalpayami, Yam Vayavyatmikaye Dhupam Kalpayami, Ram Agnyatmikaye Deepam Kalpayami, Vam Amrutatmikaye Amrutam Kalpayami, Sam Sarvatmikaye Samastopacharan Kalpayami. I'm doing a kalpana that I'm offering these upacharas. And we also talked about the importance of Lam, Hum. We are using Bijaksharas, and you should connect those Bijaksharas to the chakras conversation we had. And how that from Lam all the way to Sam, we are traveling, like, that travel part. We will just briefly talk about that as we are going through the next few steps.
Guruji, sorry for the interruption again. I wanted to know, like you told in in Vishnu Sahasranama, that where you sent us a Google. Thank you so much for all the nakshatras, like whichever nakshatra. In the same for the Lalita Sahasranama also, I remember in your last time classes, you said Lalita Sahasranama for each stanza is for a particular, like if you want it for studies or you want it for this one, is a particular stanzas, that is the one. So is that again you have in the Google Drive, and you could please share it with all of us?
I did not put that in Google Drive, Lataji. So here, instead of how Vishnu Sahasranam is a little more organized, right? Sorry, I shouldn't use the word. It's organized in a different way, that you have 108 shlokas divided by 24 and divided by 4 padas. So you just have one shloka for each of the nakshatra padam. In Lalita Sahasranamam, we have what we call as, there is a term for it, I'm missing that term, but the Kamya mantras, that for specific desires or specific, anybody needs, has a sorrow or grief or troubled marital relationships, or somebody is looking for better studies, growth, job, etc., everything, and including moksha. So for all those dharma, artha, kama, mokshas, there are in separate namas, and for those are usually given with a bijakshram in the front. So that's why I did not post it, because I did not want to post bijaksharas and just make it largely available. And this is usually not unlike in Vishnu Sahasranamam, where everybody knows about the nakshatras and the shlokas. Lalita Sahasranamam usually is given like a prescription medicine. So when you know somebody needs something, then you just define, by the way, just do this start with this bijakshara. For example, Om, a bijakshara, and the Kamya mantra that is relevant to the particular scenario that you're trying to address. That's why I did not post it. But you're right, each of those namas have a different significance.
Oh. Okay. So then we'll have to later on, later on when you go through with it, then you'll have to tell, and we can note it down in the side as we are going through.
Exactly. So that's what I've been doing, is to say, by the way, this mantra is related to, you can do it for this particular reason or particular desire. I haven't put that in any context, but maybe what I will do once we finish the entire Lalita Sahasranama. So what happens usually is what rishis have angst about is giving it to everybody openly, right? Even when we think about for example, Devi Mahatmyam or Devi Saptashati, when we are doing that, he says Guhyate Guhyataram, this is just a very top secret, don't share it with anybody. What they mean is, it's not that they want to just keep the knowledge to themselves. It's just that it could be used, and people may not get out of their desirous mode, looking for, because we talked about that hamster's life, right? It's always just going on that hamster's wheel, and they will not think about Bhagavad Dhyanam in much higher elevated way. So that's why it's probably not given out that openly. I have been talking about, whenever I notice some things like that, I have been mentioning it, but maybe towards the end, once we finish the entire 1000 namas, I'll provide a short list without the bijaksharas on it.
And it is all in each stanza is for different, like for in 112, I remember you long time said it is for Vimashra Rupni Vidya, that is for studies or something.
Yeah.
So, and then another one is that Sarva Vyadi, that means it's for chronic illness. So that means each line talks about for each desire, for whatever you are going through.
It's not even line, it's individual nama. In the case of Lalita Sahasranamam, so for example, Sarva Vyadhi Prashamani, is for all the Roga Nivaranam. And Sarva Mrityu Nivarani works like the Trayambakam Yajamahe, which is the mantra. So those two mantras are used for, like, somebody who like, not naturally but is going through, and we are trying to bring them back to life. So those are the kind of, and there is like another Jivini mantra, and there are so many mantras in tantric texts. So those will be used in those cases. Yeah. So it is the individual nama, not even a line.
Oh, okay. So individual nama for Lalita. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so once we finish the Panchopacharam, so we go into so Lalita Sahasranamam, and it starts with the Shri Matre Namaha, and before Shri Matre Namaha, there is the 3 or 4 what we call as for some reason sometimes I miss the most important words. So the 4 bijaksharas combined together, like everything starts with Om, just like in all the Vedic texts. Om, and then Aim, Hreem, Shreem. So these are very important bijaksharas. We've talked about 2 other bijaksharas as well, if anybody remembers those. So Om plus 5 bijaksharas that are very, very, very powerful and to be used. Om Aim Hreem Shreem or Aim Hreem Shreem is used for, you can use that in front of each and every one of the namas. And we've talked about, like, how we do japam and how do we do archanam and parayanam, right? So when we are doing archana, for example, or even japa, so the first nama is Sri Mata, but when we are doing that as an archana, so we will say Om Aim Hreem Shreem Shri Matre Namaha, or Om Aim Hreem Shreem Shri Maharajnye Namaha, Om Aim Hreem Shreem Shrimat Simhasaneshwaryai Namaha. So I'm doing it for, like, it's the 4th vibhakti again of each of these namas, but in feminine gender. So if you're learning Sanskritam, just take any one nama and see how you would modify that nama, which is in the first vibhakti, and change that to the 4th vibhakti. That would be your japa mantra. Now, so those bijaksharas are important. So the first line defines the essence of who we are talking about. And we have seen so many different meanings for these. Shri Mata, the word like the Shri appears 3 times. So mother herself is Shri. She is the all auspicious, she is the all beauty, she's the all wealth, she's the entire universe. And she's the one who cannot be measured. We used the term Ma for somebody who is immeasurable, of immeasurable magnanimity.
Sriji, I know in Sanskrit we write Sri one way, but in English, now whatever you're saying would be SHREE or SRI.
So English is a very weird language, unless, and because of that's why we use the IAST format, right? Like the International Standard for Sanskrit transliteration. So they actually have like dots and dashes, like in the accent, agu, and etc. for defining that. It is very difficult to write without those accents for explaining to somebody else. Here it is a Dhirgam Shri, not Shri. And my parents were looking at, like, my name is SRI, and many people get confused on how to pronounce S and R together. But mother's name is, so we talked about the 3 characters, the 3 matrikas. I shouldn't even call them characters because there's so much significance. We've talked about those Aksharamala, the Sanskrit Aksharamala from till Lam towards the end, and we will talk about that importance a little bit. So in that there is the Sa, Sha, Sha, and all 3 are very different pronunciations. So it is neither Sa nor Sha, it is the Sha. Shri with an R. If you want to do Dirgham with a EE, sure, sometimes I do a capital E, but I prefer to write Shri in either Telugu and Sanskritam, which is also Hindi. That's what I prefer. I wish I could write that, like, that's the defined signature. I sometimes think about, like, I should change my signature to some other language that actually is the right language. I won't be able to answer it with just pure English. It has to be IAST. Make sense?
Thank you, Sriji, because this is always in my mind, and I know. Then I give up and I go to Sanskrit, because that we don't have any kind of confusion there.
Exactly, yeah. So we talked about Shri Mata for Srishtikarta, Shri Maharagni is the Sthitikarta, and Srimat Simhasaneshwari as the Layakarta. So that is the essentially she is the Parabrahma Swarupini. She is the Chit Shakti. Maybe that's the first definition I should talk about. She is the Chit Shakti or the Sat Shakti of Parabrahman. She is the Shakti of the entire universe. Creator. I don't want to call creator, because it's only one part of what Bhagavan does. Of the 5 jobs, 5 main responsibilities he has. So she is Parabrahma's Shakti. So she is the Para Shakti is who we are talking about. And going to the second line, Chidagni Kunda Sambhuta Deva Karya Samudhyata. This just shows us context to Lalitopakhyanam on where the mother has emerged from and what is the purpose of her emergence or manifestation. So that mother, like from this huge Chidagni Kundam, that from the Lalitopakhyanam, if you hear that that whole narration, there's this huge Chidagni Kundam where there is not enough samidhas. So even devatas are just praying to mother, and they are throwing themselves into the fire because they are in such angst because of this Bhandasura that is just causing so much of havoc, and they need mother to destroy him so they and maintain peace again in the universe. So, and from there, mother emerged in this beautiful form from this large, huge Homa Agni. And the next part is the Keshadi Padanta Stotram. So we talked about 2 different ways of describing any Bhagavat form, either Padadi Keshantam or Keshadi Padantam. So starting from hair till the nails, or even in Keshava, what Adi Shankaracharya has done for Narayana Stuti, he has done from Bhagavan's padas to Keshas, and he actually starts from the lines under the feet of, or the dust under the feet of Bhagavan's padam, and the lines that are on his soles, and that's where he starts the whole description. In this Lalita Sahasranama Stotram, we see mother's description starting from her Udyad Bhanu Sahasrabha, as if 1,000 or infinite suns have emerged at the same time. That's how glorious she was. So there is a beautiful description of mother's physical form, but at the same time, we talked about each of these mantras having many dimensions of meanings. So we talked about Nama Vaibhava, Rupa Vaibhava, Tattva Vaibhava, Chakra Vaibhava or Yantra Vaibhava, Tantra Vaibhava, Mantra Vaibhava, Bijakshara Vaibhava, and there are many more, Kundalini, Jnana Yogam, Atma Jnanam, so a lot of different dimensions. So we've been extracting a few of those meanings. It'll take an entire lifetime to either any Sahasranamam or understanding Bhagavan is after Koti Janmas, we will understand the enormity of or the opulence of Bhagavan in his real form. But there's a beautiful physical form, different description of the Saguna form with lots of beautiful Bijaksharas and mantras embedded in each of these. The one I will remember is Ashtami Chandra Vibhraja Dalika Sthala Shobhita. So mother's forehead is like the Ashtami Chandra. So Ashtami Chandra is in the waxing and waning moons. Ashtami falls in exactly the middle. So it is the half moon, right? Exactly the semicircle. And they're describing that as the forehead of the mother. But then we talked about why Ashtami, why is it bringing Ashtami? So if you remember the Nitya Devis, we talked about every Tithi having a Devi. And Ashtami, the Nitya Devi for Ashtami is Tvarita. And Tvarita, the mother, the Nitya Devi for Ashtami is Tvarita. And she is the one who actually progresses us fastly or quicker into towards our moksha. And that's the embedded, like, it's the Nitya Devi Tvarita Nitya Devi mantra that is embedded into that line that is on the 5th shloka, first line. We talked about mothers, like, the Ida Pingala Nadis when we were talking about mothers Nasa Bharanam. So there's a lot of detailed description that's already been provided in YouTube classes. So if you see from Raga Swarupa Pashadhya Krodha Karankushojvala, almost second shloka until Shiva Swadhina Vallabha, which is 21st shloka, there is a beautiful description of how mother's form is. And there are multiple layers and dimensions of meanings that we have also discussed. So anybody who is interested to revise, just go back to those. Or if there is any clarification you need for one or two of those, just, we will extract that and we will discuss them. Then from shloka 22, Sumeru Shringa Madhyastha Shriman Nagara Nayika. This is also another phenomenal description that I have provided in detail. What is Shriman Nagaram? It is the mother's Pattanam. That is where mother lives. And where is that Pattanam? What are the details of that Pattanam? So we have seen, like, 44, 25 layers of enclosures. Kadamba Vatika, like, there are so many gardens, and, like, what is in each of those gardens. And there is the Varahi, then there is the Matangi. There are so many mothers, forms, manifestations that are also on the way when we get there. So we've done a complete travel of the Manidweepam. And then from in the Sudha Sagara Madhyam, in the middle of the ocean of Sudha or Amritam, there is the Manidweepam, and in that Manidweepam is Shriman Nagaram, and in that Shriman Nagaram there are 25 enclosures. And as you reach the central location, which is the Sri Chakram, and we've talked about the Sri Chakram and what those dwaras look like, and the details of, some of those wish fulfilling, if you remember those mantras and whatnot. So there is a lot of amazing detail that I have provided. First shloka 22 and 23 is what describes where mother is, mother's Nivasa Sthanam. Again, we have also connected that to that she is not sitting somewhere in Shriman Nagaram, which is somewhere else that we don't know about. She is within our own body, and we have put that relevance of how our body is the Shriman Nagaram and Sri Chakram. And I've also provided that context is the actual deeper, subtle, esoteric meanings. Then from 24th onwards till to 34th shloka, the first half of 34th shloka is Yuddha Prakaranam. And in this Yuddha Prakaranam, we've talked about like this Bhandasura Samharam, but along with Bhandasura, mothers, Bhanda Putras have been in the place, and Vishukra, Pranaha, Vishukra, and there were many other Asuras. The whole entire Shunya Pattanam, Shunyakapatnam was destroyed, and we put that relevance to our Arishad Vargas, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, and Raga, Dveshas, and all of those. So recollect them. And during this sequence, we've also talked about some other manifestations of mother, Sampatkari, Ashwarudha, Varahi, Bala, and Matangi. And we also, I think, Jwala Malini is another Nitya Devi. So there are many other forms of mother that we have discussed. Not in a lot of detail, but we have done some descriptions of each of those mothers. They have their own tantras, like Matangi Tantram is different and Varahi Tantram is different. Bala Tantram is their sciences on their own that have enormous depths. Then moving to shloka 34, second half till 36th, first half, 4 lines are very, very crucial. This is mother's Panchadashi mantra. So there are, and we talked about Panchadashi as having 3 different kutas. First kutam or first portion of the Panchadashi mantra has 5 bijaksharas. Second one has 6 bijaksharas, and the last one has 4 bijaksharas. And what is Vagbhava Kutam? and then Madhya Kutam, and then Shakti Kutam. We talked about those, and Mula Mantratmika, Mula Kutatraya Kalebara. So this is the mantra vaibhava of Bhagavati. So we talked about those. Then from 36.5, I'm assuming like everybody has Lalita Sahasranamam in front of you. And if I'm going fast, let me know. I don't want to just throw numbers out there if you're not having something relevant to just, your map to walk through this. Or if you can just pull up something on Google quickly so you can actually understand what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I'm just throwing random numbers at you. 36th second half, Kula Amritaika Rasika, Kula Sanketa Palini. So that's whole Kula namas are amazing. I've talked about what is Vishnu Grandhi, Brahma Grandhi, Ruddha Grandhi, and the whole entire chakras in the body, and Akshara Mala that is related to those chakras, and how Kundalini travels from the Mooladhara chakra to the Sahasrara chakra. So we've done some brief introduction to that. And then once we go into a little bit in the hundreds, 105 or 106, around that part of the shlokas, then we will see in detail of each of the mothers who are in the adharams that we talked about. In Mooladhara, who is the mother, what are her preferences, what does she look like, and what are her ganas, etc. So there is a little more detail that's provided there. But here we just purely talked about the 7 chakras. So Sahasrara is not a chakra, but 6 plus is a Sahasrara, and how Kundalini is traveling, and what are the granthis that need to be chedanam. So what granthis we need to surpass or break in order to ensure that the Kundalini is traveling upwards towards jnana, towards knowledge, and towards moksha. So that is an important critical part, which is the first, till the 40th shloka. And I also mentioned, if you're not able to chant the entire Lalita Sahasranamam, I'm not supposed to give these kind of tips, but doing the first 40 shlokas correctly on a regular basis gives you the benefit of the rest of the Lalita Sahasranamam. But there is so much in the rest of the Lalita Sahasranamam, you don't want to even miss out on that. But in case some days you don't have the entire time for, if you know Lalita Sahasranamam well, you can actually chant in 10 minutes if you're doing it manasikam inside, you're not having to stop for breathing and whatnot. But 20 minutes, if you can dedicate 20 minutes a day, this is a amazing. There's so much in Lalita Sahasranamam, and similarly in Vishnu Sahasranamam.
And then, Guruji, sorry for interruption again. So you said that if you get little time, you should do till the 41 sloka at least.
40th.
40th, okay.
Yeah.
At least to do every day the 40th.
To do 40 sloka, yeah. And then she will find you ways, she'll find you time to do the entire. That's how I should put it.
Oh.
So she creates so much time, and when you see any Sri Vidya Upasakas generally, you would feel like, how do they find time for this? They seem to be doing so many different things and handling so many things, but how do they find time? She is the one who actually, she is the time, and we have seen so many namas and even Nitya Devis do support, and in 24 hours you actually find 28 hours worth of time to be able to do and do her work. So I've seen a lot of examples like that. So it's not even a myth. It is truth that she will find time in your life. So you will do the whatever you're doing, plus you will have enough time to do the entire Lalita Sahasranamam, but start with the first 40 if you are not getting enough time.
Shriji, can I ask, you have any YouTube reference for finishing it in 20 minutes, that speed, so I can chant along that speed? Do you know of anything?
The only Lalita Sahasranam that I liked was from Prajna, from Conscious, Abhideya. I think that's her name. Abhijna and Abhideya, that girl, but I don't think she finished in 20 minutes. I plan to record at some point, and I haven't had a chance to do that.
We would love it, because
I would never try recording Vishnu Sahasranamam, because nobody can compete with the way MS Lakshmi Amma has rendered it. So that is the best for anybody to do. Lalita Sahasranamam, I haven't been very impressed with. There is a lot of singing that happens in some of the stotras. Maybe Bombay sisters have done it well, but it is again a little longer. I will try to record it, Padmaji.
Yeah, no problem. I follow this Rajashri. Sometimes it's a bit slow and I'm a little faster, and I want to have some consistency, So, okay.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so from 41st shloka, it is, and here mala mantras are extremely like, they are, it's like what I'm wearing, like, the Spatika mala. They just create mantras that just are forms of garland for the mother. And each mala mantram has its own importance and it has its own significance. So from 41st shloka till the 42nd and 42.5, all the bha related namas are all called as Bhavani Vidya. And we have given the importance of what Bhavani is. It's one of the names that you would want to highlight in golden letters. Bhavani, Bhavana Gamya, Bhavaranya Kutarika. She just access the entire samsara from the root. She Kutarika, she just has the axe to cut it and elevate us from being bound to the samsara. So it's kind of like amazing namas, and each of those mala mantras also have the phalashruti of that vidya with embedded within those namas. That's how beautifully it is done. For example, Bhakta Priya, Bhakti Gamya, Bhakti Vashya, Bhayapaha. She will just remove all the bhayas, in that Bhavani Vidya. Then 42nd to 43 completely is Shambhavi Vidya. And within Shambhavi Vidya, you see Shatodari is another manifestation of mother. Shatodari is actually one with slender waist. But that is not the real meaning of Shatodari. There is a lot more deeper into Shatodari itself is like a big Vidya. But all comes under Shambhavi Vidya. Shambhavi Vidya, Shambhavi mother has her own mantra, embedded with a lot of bijaksharas. But that is the mala mantram from Shambhavi to Shantimati. Okay, from Niradhara, then we actually now are moving to Nirguna Rupam and all the Atma Jnanam that we get from Vishnu Sahasranamam. That is, re-explained here in Lalita Sahasranamam. So Niradhara Niranjana all the way to Niratyaya in shloka 50, 50 and the first line. Okay, so the next line, 50th shloka, second line, where we say Durlabha, Durgama, Durga, all of those Du mantras, and we talked about what Du means dukkha. The one that removes all the dukkhas is Durga Vidya, and Durga Vidya ends with Samanadhikavarjita, which is 51st, second line. Then we talked about Vanadurga Mala mantra starts from the 52nd shloka, Sarva Shaktimayi, Sarva Mangala, Sadgati Prada. So these are again what is Vanadurga providing us? Sarveshwari, Sarvamayi, Sarva Mantra Swarupini. And then she's the Sarva Yantratmika. All the yantras, she's the Atma of all the yantras. She's the Atma, she's the Rupam of all the Tantras. And Manonmani, we connected Manonmani to Sri Rudram and Namaste Astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya. So if you remember that, it ends with Manonmani, and that Manonmani is the 10th stage of Rudra, and his Shakti is Manonmani. We talked about that. So moving to the next Mahat Shabdas, this is Mahajnanam or Maheshwari, Mahadevi, Mahalakshmi. We were just talking about that in Vishnu Sahasranamam. All the Mahat Shabdas can only be attributed to the absolute Parabrahman. So that will start from the 53rd and see the amount of Mahatantra, Mahamantra. So all the till 50 Maha Tripurasundari in 57. And within this context, we have seen Maha Mantra, Mahayantra, Mahatantra. I have told you about the number of tantras that exist: Ashvakranta, Ratakranta, Vishnukranta, 64, 64, 64 tantras. We talked about those. We talked about what is that? Oh my God. Anyway, we talked about a stotram where we talked about the 5 phases of Rudra giving the 7 crore mantras and which phase has given what kind of mantras. We talked about Vaishnava mantras. We talked about, Shakta mantras, Surya mantras, and all of those, if you remember. So those that I have brought that into Amnaya Stotram. So I brought that into context here. So tantras, mantras, and we also talked about the details of yantras and how many yantras there are and how, for example, there is a yantra for each of the shloka in Saundarya Lahari. I don't know if, how many of you would know that. It's a beautiful stotram, like obviously Adi Shankaracharya, everybody knows Saundarya Lahari, but within Saundarya Lahari are embedded lots of mantras, and there is a yantram for each of the 100 shlokas. So she's the Atma of all of those shlokas. We talked about that. And then we also talked about Mahayaga Kramaradhya. There is a whole kramam called Mahayaga Kramam, which is phenomenal, related to the Bhavanopanishad. At some point, maybe we'll be able to connect it. So that is a term to be highlighted. With Mahayaga Kramam, mother is worshipped. So highlight that term and remind me once we finish the entire Lalita Sahasranamam. Okay.
What Upanishad was that again, Sriji?
Bhavanopanishad.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is amazing. Like, I can't tell you how beautiful that Bhavanopanishad is, and how that is embedded into a practice. So the difference is in Vishnu Sahasranamam, it is about understanding the absoluteness of Bhagavan. Okay, it is the Vedanta. Lalita Sahasranamam explains to you who Bhagavan is and his Shakti, the Bhagavati, and also gives you some how-to steps. There are some practical steps embedded within Lalita Sahasranamam. That's why you would see some words like this Mahayaga Kramaradhya, or there is a Raho Yaga that will come at a later time. So there are some practical things, mantra, yantra, tantra, Kundalini, Jnana. It's a combination of a lot of things. But ultimately our goal is, with this, how to we understand the essence of what Vishnu Sahasranamam is. Then we move to 58th shloka, Chatursashtipacharadhya. I have also shared this document in the forum, and it should be in the Google Drive as well, that is related to Lalita Sahasranamam. 64 upacharas that are conducted for mother's worship in temples and by upasakas. I do those as well. Those are 64 different upacharas that are for, so there are panchopacharam. We were talking about this, 5 upacharas that we do. And most frequently we do Shodash Upacharam for anything like Vinayaka Chaviti or any of the pujas, Varalakshmi Vratam, we do 16 upacharas. But when we are doing Bhagavati, like Devi special pujas, we do 64 upacharas, and I have walked you through all of those 64 and also provided a document for it. And we talked about Mahachatusashti Koti Yogini Ganasevita. So 64 crores of yoginis and where they come from, who they are. We talked about that. So won't go into detail. Then from Parvati Padmanayana. Oh yeah, so we did the Manu Vidya, Chandra Vidya, the number of vidyas that are there. Who Manu, what is Manu Vidya, what is Chandra Vidya? So I also talked about those. Chandra Mandala Madhyaga and Bhanu Mandala Madhyastha, how you see Bhagavati in the core of sun and also the core of moon and Agni. So remember those. And we talked about Parvati Vidya, Parvati Padmanayana. And from here, it is like amazing set of mantras that are Mandukya Upanishad embedded between 60th shloka till 69th Bhuvaneshwari Vidya. So we talked about the 5 stages. You remember Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti. We also talked about the Pancha Brahmas, who they are. So Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, and the Tirodhanam and Anugraham, what those mean. And Unmesha Nimishotpanna Vipanna Bhuvanavalihi. And then there is also Sahasra Sirshavadana, Sahasrakshi, Sahasrapat. We were just talking about the context in Vishnu Sahasranamam for that, and the Narayana Suktam and Purusha Suktam. So the 66th shloka. Then Abrahma Kita Janani, from Brahma to the Pipilika Paryantam, or the from the ant, or from the Kitas or the insects till Brahma. She is the creator Shakti, or the Shakti of the creator in all these. So we've seen that Bhuvaneshwari Vidya. And right after Bhuvaneshwari 69th shloka, we will see the embedded nama of the Bijaksharam that is related to Bhuvaneshwari Vidya, Hrinkari. And there are only 2 Bijaksharas that are embedded as namas in the entire Lalita Sahasranamam. That Hrinkari is one of those. Narayani is an important nama. We looked at that. And the next set of shlokas, are like, we've seen Rama, Rakendvadana, Rajaraja, Archita, who are the Rajarajas, Manu, and all of those, Rakshasagni, Vishwadhika. Now we are going to start from Kshetra Swarupa Kshetresi, which is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, embedded into these two lines of Kshetra Swarupa Kshetresi till Kshetrapala Samarchita. In this whole thing, we also did kalas, 64 Vidya kalas, 64 Vritti kalas, and 99 kalas that are related to each of these Pancha Brahmas. We talked about Agni kalas, Soma kalas, Surya kalas. So those are very important. What else did we cover? We did all the Nitya Devis and how the moon, waxing and waning moon, and how the 15 Nitya Devis plus the 16th Shodashi comes into picture. We also talked about the 36 tattvas. We talked about how Aksharamala, Sanskrit Aksharamala is related to the petals of each of the lotuses or each of the adharas of the chakras within our body. We talked about Vivaha Bandham and Vivaha Mantras and how that is related to our path to moksha, how our marital relationship helps progress us towards the moksha. That's what we covered so far. Any questions, any thoughts, anything that I missed?
Sriji, I have a couple of questions. So you said from Parvati, did you say Parvati Vidya starts there?
So Parvati Vidya and kind of Bhuvaneshwari, it ends with Bhuvaneshwari, but in actually the Bhuvaneshwari Vidya ends with 70th shloka. Both are kind of combined together and not very significantly different. So Parvati gets us started and takes us to Bhuvaneshwari, which is the highest form of Vidya, and Narayani Nadarupa. Oh, by the way, we also talked about the 10 Nadas and how Nada plays with us. And takes us to the Nama Rupa Vivarjita. So we will go beyond this Nama Rupas of ourselves when we do these Vidyas during the Hrinkari Hrimati Hritya. So that from Parvati 60 to 70 is Parvati leading us to Bhuvaneshwari.
Okay. 69 or 70?
70 actually.
70. Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Hrinkari is part of the Bhuvaneshwari Vidya.
Okay. And then one last question. Also the nirlepa of all that niradhara, all the ni mantras.
Yeah.
Did you say there was a name for that, or did I miss it?
Yeah, it was all the Jnana, Atma
okay.
Jnanam or Jnana, Atma Vidya or Tattva Vidya. Yeah, it is
Thank you.
the entire definition of who Atman is, what is consciousness.
Okay, thank you.
Sriji,
Go ahead.
for Nirguna Rupam, Nistula Nila Chukura Nirabaya, what other than having blue haired, what is Nila Chukura really?
Nila Chikura, that's one nama that I felt, I needed to get back to you and I did not, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't forget.
Yeah, I don't think I actually prepared for that. So there is a detailed description of it, Bhavaniji. So I just need, I think I'll post it in the forum. I won't even wait for next week. I'll post it today in the forum on what I can share about that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I owe you that nama.
Guruji, I also wanted to know, like you were saying from the 60th to the 70th one, it starts from Parvati to Bhuvaneshwari. So then, so that means Lalita Sahasranamam is also in each parts. It talks about each Devis. Is that what it is?
And so we say Lalita Sahasranamam, but Mother has manifested in so many different forms because she is the Jagat. She is everything that is the created, the matter, right? And so the various forms of her and how she plays, and she's very playful, joyful, social, manifests in so many different joyous forms, and depending on and she takes us to various levels of her worship. So all of this actually it's a travel. Think of it like a journey. You start from understanding who she is, understanding the Saguna Rupam, and understanding the deeper meanings, and she is slowly taking you towards the final thing. Again, it will say, like, towards the end, you see the last shloka. Sri Shiva, Shiva Shaktyaike Rupini Lalitambika. Shiva Shaktyaika, she will take us to the Aikyam with Shiva.
Oh,
And again comes back to Lalita. So it's like various forms of mother. How because when we talk about Vedanta and when we talk about moksha, we are living in a world where we interact with the matter, where we interact with what is today, right? Like, yes, I want vairagyam, but somebody is dealing with a very unauspicious thing in their life. They cannot say I have vairagyam unless somebody becomes a sannyasi and does not have anything to deal with the entire world. Probably is fine. That is the way to do like that. That's a Sankhya yoga. But there is the karma yogis like us. We have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we do go through these ups and downs no matter how much we say we won't. So she is the one, she is helping us through those and keeping us elevated without being that pendulum or be with the hamster wheel analogy we have. So she will keep us afloat and takes us past and keeps us continuously focused on Shiva. And it's like, it says, there are so many analogies, so many ways, mother will be described in any of the bhashyams. So when the Kundalini Jagranam happens, she's in such hurry to go meet her husband in the Sahasrara. So she is, she is the Tvarita. She will help us get to that, or she will expedite our travel to get to that Aikyam. Versus if we were doing on our own, then there will be a lot of discipline that we have to put for ourselves, but she helps and supports. Tantra actually supports towards moksha. So it's called the Bhukti Mukti Pradayini. In the world, she will let us enjoy, not like, party, not like, the parties that we see in crazy movies, but it's more like, you will enjoy the entire journey while you have the body, and then towards the end she will take us to that Shiva Aikyam. So that's why I wouldn't call it various other mothers. It's the same mother in different phases of the travel of the journey.
oh, okay. So that is why that in the beginning slokas, when you start with it, we are talking about Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni. So we are talking about herself and the Simhasanam and all that.
Exactly. So we are only saying Shri Mata. There is only one mother. There can only be one mother, right? Like we have the Parabrahman, the father for the entire existence, and she is the Shakti of that mother. And that's why, Shiva Shaktya Yukto, the first shloka itself, Adi Shankaracharya propounds that if Shiva did not have Shakti, if you are not with him, then he is not Shiva, and he would be a Shiva without you, because you are his Shakti. He is being driven because of your Shakti, your power. You're providing him the power to maintain and create this existence and sustain it.
And I think last time you said that four pillars is like Shiva and Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and all those things, which are all those Sahasranam has been created. Oh, so you're talking about the throne, and then you're talking about how thousands and Sahasrabha and all that goes on.
Correct. Yeah, the Pancha Brahmasana Sthita.
Yeah.
The five, the four legs and the plank of the Simhasanam that mother is sitting on. That's we've seen that visual of Lalita Mahatripura Sundari, and people wonder why is she sitting on Shiva? But if you think about the the Vedantic essence of it, everything that we see as visuals of Saguna Brahman has a lot more deeper meaning of understanding. So she is the one that the world, entire universe is dependent or is seated on the substratum that is created by the Trimurtis as the creator, sustainer, and the destroyer of the universe. She is the one that is the matter existence.
Okay. And then that's how you talk about all those hands which she's got, and the sugar cane over there where it's a bowl like sugar cane and 5 arrows and all that. You talk about it, and then we are moving towards her description of her body, a description of her color, a description of the flowers and all that, which is all related to her. And then you keep moving towards the journey and then coming like that.
Exactly. And then towards the end she'll say Shiva Shakti Aikya Rupini.
But why did you say then 60 to 70 deals with Parvati and Bhuvaneshwari? So that's also mother only, no?
It's all the same mother.
Same mother.
It's a different journey. Think of it like a train journey. You're getting through in different stations, but you're progressing in your journey, and each from that station to the next, the next level of the journey happens by a different manifestation of the same mother.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Guruji. Thank you so much.
Sriji, a small question, Sriji.
So go ahead.
During Narayani Nadarupa, you were talking about Pancha Tanmatra also. Just can you quickly cover that one more time, please?
Yeah. So Nada Rupa, we talked about the 10 different nadas that will be heard as the Kundalini is moving towards, like, the higher levels of the chakras. So we talked about Kini, Vichi, there are so many different nadas, the 10 nadas. So in the Pancha Tanmatras, so different, when we talk about Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, the elevation actually manifests in forms of different progresses okay, maybe I should take it this way. So when we think about sound, we have a certain frequency that we can hear from. So we hear from so-and-so X to a Y. And we won't be able to hear frequencies that are infrasonic and ultrasonic. But we know that, bats, for example, do hear some other sonic sounds. But there are sounds we know that exist beyond the frequencies that a normal human being hears. So when we do Mother's Upasana, when the Kundalini is traveling, Shakti is traveling through from the Muladhara as she's elevating to the next levels of chakras, depending on where she is at any given point, the frequencies will expand. And that's how, if you remember when we talk about Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Shruti, we say rishis have heard these sounds and they then have given it to the rest of us, passed it on through generations. So how did rishis hear these additional frequencies? Through this Shakti, through that concentrating through their powers and how their Shaktis have developed. So they have sharper the Tanmatras, in order to grasp different frequencies of sounds or different layers of colors or everything, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So that is related to that context. Is that what you were asking for, Krantiji? Does that answer?
Yes, Sriji, exactly that one, Sriji. Thank you so much.
Okay, shall we conclude? So if anybody has any thoughts or questions, I have not marked, that's the big thing that I have not done, and I uploaded to YouTube, is to identify which nama to which nama in each of those. So that's one thing that I regret not doing. So you have to unfortunately go into each video and try to see where we are in which namas and get, if you're looking for one specific nama. But Lalitopakhyanam would be very in the beginning and Purvanyasam will be in the beginning. And I am hoping I can be a little more organized, because I've told you many times, I'm not a guru. I'm just somebody who learns and loves to share for the entire world. And hopefully, sanatana dharma should exist forever, is the hope that I live in. I'm hoping that I would be able to organize each nama and its meanings in short clips. So hopefully I'll be able to get to it with Mother's blessings and Bhagwan's blessings soon. But for now, you have to unfortunately go into each video and try to figure out where approximately we were if you're looking for a specific nama's meaning. Okay, with that we'll conclude. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sarvam Sri Paradevatarpanamastu. And if there is interest in learning chanting